This video is sponsored by the SAN Project. Many people in this world have hidden talents that aren't fully realised, and some may struggle to realise them in traditional colleges. The SAN Project is all about taking people who may find its educational style and environment better for them to unleash their hidden potential. Located in Worthing, West Sussex, they dedicate themselves to helping people from all over to learn about what they want to be it a chef, a carpenter, a photographer, or even a pilot. Their staff provide staunch and caring support to all of their students and provide many learning aids to make the process more fun, such as mentoring and tutoring from industry professionals in the field that they're interested in, and video tutorial guides provided by yours truly. So yeah, this is what I call work between making these videos. Head to thesanproject.co.uk for more information on how to get involved, or if you wish to become a mentor, and how to contact them. And when you get there, tell them George sent you. And now, back to our regularly scheduled programming. Alright my darlings! Well, we're once again looking at something a little bit different from normal today, but it's not that out of the ordinary for me in terms of the era I mostly pull my review content from. I've mentioned in the past that I almost never watched CITV growing up because of certain reasons, but there was one show on that channel that I always loved tuning into. Power Rangers. Yes, after Dick and Dom was over on BBC, I had to watch something on the weekends, and since most of the new weekend shows on BBC weren't nearly as entertaining, I'd switch over to the other side and watch spandex superheroes fighting rubber-suited monsters in mech suits. Bit of a contrast in comparison, isn't it? Because Lord knows I wasn't actually going to be asked to go outside and try and interact with other people. Yes, when Dick and Dom wasn't on, I'd switch over to Up on the Roof or Toonatic, and please tell me if you remember those, because I feel like I'm the only one who does sometimes, and indulge my childhood need to see gratuitous violence and cheesy special effects. And what better place to find those than Power Rangers?
What about Doctor Who?
Well, that did have one, but it didn't have the other.
How about Torchwood then?
Yeah, that works. So, we're going to talk about one of the things that everyone who's seen Power Rangers can agree is awesome, the theme songs, and we're going to rank every single one. So let's not waste any time and get into it. Though before we start, I will have to admit that I'm not going to be able to play the whole theme songs for you because of very obvious copyright reasons, and these songs really do deserve to be listened in full, so I've put a link in the description of a supercut of all the theme songs for your enjoyment. And of course, like always, this is just my opinion, and you're free to have your own, but I'm also taking the quality of the song itself into account only. The actual quality of the series it was attached to will not affect my rankings, though I will give a few quick opinions on them whilst I'm going through them. And with that said, it's Morphin time! Number 19. Mystic Force. This may come as a surprise to some people, since whilst most fans do justifiably hate this theme, there's another theme that most fans were likely expecting to come first on this list. But to be honest, I actually think this is way worse. Mystic Force is a very divisive series for some, others liking it for having a very large emphasis on mysticism and sorcery, something that has been an element of past Ranger series but never to this degree, and it being the series that arguably utilised its home filming location of New Zealand to its fullest more than any other series of Power Rangers. Which, by the way, yes, since 2004, Power Rangers has been exclusively filmed in New Zealand, despite the fact how the show is actually banned from airing over there due to the violence.
Ironic how a nation founded by criminals has one of the most strict censorship policies this side of China.
I wonder if the productions ever accidentally crossed paths with Peter Jackson's from time to time. I mean, imagine that, the Rangers are fighting off some giant frog or something, and a hobbit wanders onto the scene. Though to be fair, in this particular series, that wouldn't have been too out of place. Personally, I loved this series as a kid, and I do still enjoy it quite a bit now, though I can certainly see why a lot of people didn't like it all that much, and I can't deny I've noticed some of its problems more as I've gotten older, but I do still have a soft spot for it. However, the one thing that everyone can agree on with this series is that the music is terrible, and sadly, that problem is very apparent from the very first moment the show starts, with its theme song. Have I accidentally put on Cops right now?
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
I have no idea whose bright idea it was to have a Power Rangers theme be an R&B song, but it does not work at all. I'm not really a fan of R&B or rap, but I can admit that it does produce some good music sometimes. Unfortunately, this is not the case. This song just feels way too low-key, it lacks any kind of excitement, it doesn't fit with the tone at all. The opening does have some promise with a very fantasy-style instrumental, and even the lead into the electronic bass sounds alright. But the second those lyrics kick in, it hits you like a Megazord punch to the face. Hard, artificial, and painfully. What's really sad though is that Ron Wasserman, the composer of Power Rangers from its early days, and the guy who made the original theme songs...
Morphin? Not morphine, right? It's like, no, morphine, you idiot. I'm like, okay, it's hard not to say morphine.
Was actually brought in to make a theme song for this series, like he did for the previous one, and it is way, way better than this one. Why couldn't have this been the theme song? I consider this the worst theme song out of all of them, and I know that many fans are expecting a different one, and don't worry, it is coming, but I have much more of a flame burning for this one because it just sounds so pathetic. Mystic Force is just one really bad spell. Number 18. RPM. Yep, we still got one more to go before we get to the one that everyone is waiting for at the bottom, and yet I still think this one is even worse than that. In fact, I had to debate with myself which is worse, this or Mystic Force, and I put Mystic Force lower because of that stupid decision to have it be an R&B song, but RPM does come really close. RPM is one of the most beloved series of Power Rangers by fans, being a very risky and experimental series with having it be a mix between Power Rangers and the Terminator of all things, being set in a post-apocalyptic robot uprising where 90% of the human race has been exterminated by sentient computer viruses. And the main characters are humanity's last hope in winning the war between humans and robots.
And what better way to fight the armies of the robot apocalypse than teenagers in brightly colored spandex?
That is not spandex!
I wasn't the biggest fan of the series when I first watched it. I felt like the whiplash of having it switching between this incredibly dark and disturbing story concept and having the traditional Power Rangers stuff in it, plus the often embarrassing attempts at comedic relief just made it a bit too jarring for me. But I have warmed to it, and it is very good in its own way. Plus, you can't not love Dr. K.
Jem and Gemma have confronted me with the possibility that, in an effort to protect myself from future emotional trauma, I may have treated some of you with a degree of forced emotional detachment, perhaps even bordering on coldness.
Now, knowing that it was written by one of the guys from Disney who wrote a lot of their cartoon shows like Kim Possible and American Dragon, a lot of this does make a lot more sense now, since a lot of this stuff would have worked better in a cartoon world. That being said, for such a fan favourite series, there is one thing it falls down on, and that's the theme song. I'll give them credit though, this series was very different from the normal status quo, so having a different kind of theme song would actually be kind of called for. But why did you go with this? It just sounds like butt rock to me. Like if you hired Kid Rock and Nickelback to make a Power Rangers theme. Oh god, I don't even want to imagine what that would actually sound like.
Go Power Rangers!
Now to be fair, making a Power Rangers theme is probably one of the hardest compositional challenges for any musician, especially since Power Rangers series titles are often unfeasibly long, and having to incorporate those titles into the lyrics is definitely a challenge. So having a short title like this was probably a godsend, so they must have decided to do something different with it, but this wasn't the right kind of different. Having some guys with laryngitis having angry sex with a bunch of electric guitars and yelling Power Rangers RPM at the top of their lungs is not a good theme song. Hell, it's not even really a song, it's just noise. And this is coming from a guy whose favourite band is AC/DC, and even I don't like this song. This barely even constitutes what you could consider a song, which is why the next one on our list I actually think is a little bit better than this. Number 17. Operation Overdrive. I do like to keep you on tenterhooks in my videos, and here's the one that every Power Rangers fan was expecting to see first. Operation Overdrive is generally considered by fans to be the worst series of Power Rangers ever, and I will have to concede that it most probably is, but I feel it does have some good points. The story of Mack, the Red Ranger, and the revelation of who he really is near the end of the series is actually really interesting, and I think it was done quite well. Plus, Spencer the Butler is awesome. I'd happily watch the series if it means I get to watch more of him.
Box an old lady, would we?
Spencer!
He's like a mix between Blackadder, Basil Fawlty, and Mr. Belvedere. It's great. Like the series itself, I do feel the theme song is not without its merits, but it is really bad.
Power Rangers! Operation Overdrive! Like 5 fingers reaching for the sky in 5 ways.
The biggest problem being is that it's a rap song, which, as mentioned with Mystic Force, is a terrible idea. But unlike that theme song, I feel this one does have a little bit more energy to it, and the lyrics do actually reflect the story of the series. Sometimes, anyway.
Dark forces lurking, leaving evil where they roam. 5 Rangers looking for the same 5 stones.
That is, it's supposed to, but the guy sings so quickly and incomprehensively that you can barely tell what he's supposed to be saying. It's a bad song, but the fact that it just makes me feel bored while listening to it elevated it above the last two in my eyes. RPM's theme makes me feel like I'm going deaf when I'm listening to it, and Mystic Force makes me wish I was deaf when I was listening to it. This is just kind of generic, bad, late 2000s kid-friendly rap, and I heard plenty of those as a kid, so I guess I had a bit more of a tolerance for it. I do feel that a Power Rangers theme should speak of the show. Overdrive was about globe-trotting treasure hunters, so maybe something that invoked an Indiana Jones or a James Bond feel might have worked best here. Though that would have been hard for a Power Rangers theme, I will grant you. But still, it would have been a lot better than this. Fortunately, from this point on, everything we have left is at least listenable. So, onwards and upwards. Number 16. Jungle Fury. Fittingly, we're going with the theme for the show that came right after Overdrive. Jungle Fury was a marked improvement over its predecessor as a show, with some of the best fights in all of Power Rangers history, a great focus on kung fu and animal motifs with the combat and characters, and a much better story. It's definitely an underrated series in Power Rangers.
And yet not a single one of them used the power of a fox.
What would that ability even be? The ability to steal rubbish from people's bins and poo in their gardens?
Maybe I should show you the power of a fox right here, on your throat.
Easy there, Shifu. You get rid of me and there's no more show anymore.
Yes, there will, and it will be mine.
Yeah. I'd like to see you edit and film with those paws of yours. But sadly, despite the good parts of this series being really good, the theme song I don't really feel was one of them.
Here comes the Power Rangers, Jungle Fury. Go!
I could just never really get into this song. It feels kind of like a California garage band song, and it doesn't really quite do it for me. Similar to Mystic Force, I like the initial build-up, but when it gets to the main body of the song, it loses me. My taste in music dies off around 1995, and since this music sounds like a typical 90s pop rock song, it's just not really my thing. I get why they did it like this though. The mentor character and eventual Purple Ranger RJ is a stereotypical Californian style laid back dude, so this style of music really does fit his character, but I feel it could have been done a lot better than this, even in that style.
Training hard to be the best that we can. Power Rangers, protecting people from the evil Daishi plan.
Like something that was made to sound like a Faith No More song, but hey, it's still better than the previous series theme. Jungle Fury just kind of feels a bit like a mudslide. I don't mean the kind of ice cream. Number 15. Beast Morphers. Beast Morphers is the first series made under the Power Rangers' current owners, Hasbro, and so far they seem to have done quite a decent job with it, even if it looks like they're not allocating them much of a budget. It definitely has some promise to it and some really great fan service references in there, plus with it being a sort of sequel to RPM in some ways. But we're here to talk about the theme song, and all I can say on that front is, it's okay. It's just okay. There really isn't much I can add here. It's not got much to it. It does incorporate a little bit of the chords from the original Go-Go Power Rangers theme, but every series of the 2010s has done that so far, and frankly I'm getting a little tired of it. Try and come up with something new, for crying out loud. The theme does grow on you the more you listen to it, but there's not really a lot to it, and after a while you just kind of find yourself skipping it. There, that's it. Shortest entry ever. Now on to the next one. Number 14. Ninja Storm. Ninja Storm was the first Power Rangers series to be made after Disney purchased the rights for the show. And yes, just try and wrap your head around the idea that the series that was a repackaging of footage from one of Japan's most long-running TV shows was at one point owned by the company that also owns Mickey Mouse, and is also in charge of the localization of Studio Ghibli movies. So how long before Disney decides to try and buy Viz Media and make a crossover with One Piece and Pirates of the Caribbean? I didn't really watch much of Ninja Storm as a kid, and even having now seen it, I can honestly say I don't think I missed out on much. It's not a bad series, I just didn't really find anything about it that really stuck out to me that much. And sadly that does reflect on the theme song, which I don't also think is that great of a theme song. It is kind of catchy sometimes, but it's not a theme that I would put in high regard. Similar to Jungle Fury, it takes one of the series' characters' traits and applies it to the theme, in this case, surfer rock, as the Blue Ranger, Tori, is a keen surfer and the other Rangers are also into extreme sports. And while that does work better here, I still don't think it's that great. It also doesn't help that this was the first series to be shot in New Zealand, and for whatever reason, the sound department that Disney hired for this series was really not that great. So the quality of the music on a technical level sounds a little bit off.
Like we're ones to complain about that.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. Ninja Storm does have some good elements to it, but it's not one that sticks out with you that much and is a little forgettable. Number 13. Dino Fury. This is the only Power Rangers series I've not seen anything from yet, since I haven't actually seen it yet. However, thanks to the Power Rangers YouTube channel, I can still see the theme song, and I'd say it's actually pretty good.
Go, go, Power Rangers! Dino Fury, go, go, Power Rangers! Dino Fury.
Like a lot of the later Power Rangers themes, it uses elements from the original theme from the first series, and while I am sick of them making derivatives of that song, this one isn't too bad, and I do feel it is an improvement over Beast Morphers.
Evolution, revolution, mighty Rangers rise!
The more electro-pop style is a bit of an odd choice, but this time it does work, and it still keeps the overall high energy and rock style of previous themes whilst trying something new. I like it, and the visuals it shows do have a lot of promise as to what the series is going to be like, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. Although this is like the 5th series to be dinosaur themed, and I know they're limited by what Sentai they can use, which yeah, in case you didn't already know, most of Power Rangers action footage is taken from a long-running Japanese series called Super Sentai, and if you think Power Rangers is weird, you've not seen some of the stuff they haven't adapted, like the Train Sentai.
Oh my god, is that what I think it is?
Although that would finally bring together the Power Rangers and Thomas the Tank Engine fans in glorious harmony. They still could have picked a better name for the show, since now I feel that they're just using a title generator that has the same 4 nouns in them: Fury, Force, Charge, or Morph. Someone needs to give Saban a thesaurus.
Maybe the next series will be called Dino Fury Force Morphers.
Actually, that does sound pretty awesome. Number 12. Lost Galaxy. Lost Galaxy is the most unique series of Power Rangers there has ever been, with the only exception being RPM. The best way to describe it is Power Rangers crossed with Star Trek, and it took itself surprisingly seriously and really tried to make itself feel like a modern adult sci-fi series. And for the most part it pulled it off, despite the fact that one of the villains was a giant spider octopus and the other one was a pirate that flew around on a castle on the back of a giant dinosaur in space. Sounds more like the missing part of the Scientology Bible to me.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
This was the first theme song of the series not to be made by Ron Wasserman, and they really had problems adapting without him for a while, since while I can tell that the theme song is trying to invoke the space opera feel in the orchestration, it just feels a tad generic and nowhere near as addictive or energetic as the previous themes. That being said, I do like the operatic ahs in the song. Something that Power Rangers hadn't really done before in a theme, and haven't really done since either. Yeah, it's a lazy way of not having to put in lyrics, I'll grant you, but hey, at least it shows that the singers can all sing in harmony, which is good because some of the singers lower on this list can't even sing in tune with their own music. So I'll take what I can get here, especially since with the main composer having left the show at the time, it could have been a lot worse. It's not quite a song that reaches for the stars, but it certainly tried. Number 11. Ninja Steel. Ninja Steel is not a particularly well-liked series, but I think it's okay, and it does have its moments, even if it does feel a bit lackluster, though one thing I massively disagree on is the general opinion of the theme song, which many people say is not very good. Were we listening to the same theme song here? I think the song is really good. I will grant you it's not a great theme, but it's got a lot of very empowering elements to it, especially with a deeper voice singer than most Power Rangers series. And the more heavy drum backing too makes it really pump you up. Plus the use of more Chinese style instruments like shamshins and piccolos really gives off a ninja feel to the show. I like it. It really gets me pumped for the show, though I will admit that them resorting to yet again using elements from Go-Go Power Rangers does really break the flow and seem a bit lazily placed in. Especially compared to Dino Fury and Dino Charge. There are other Power Rangers theme songs out there, guys. Maybe try incorporating those into future themes instead.
Care to mention a few?
Oh, don't worry, we'll get to them soon enough. Still, not one of the best themes, but I still think it's pretty worthwhile. But what we've got next is certainly worth your time. You'll get that in just a couple of seconds. Number 10. Time Force. Now here's where we start getting into the good stuff. Time Force is a fan favourite in the Power Rangers fanbase, with a very unique and even rather mature story involving, of course, time travel, but also choosing of one's destiny, loss of loved ones, prejudice and revenge. It gets really heavy at some points. The theme song is also a really good one, improving on the flaws of Lost Galaxy and even a little bit from Lightspeed Rescue, with having a more of an emphasis on actual guitars rather than the synth ones, and really upping the tempo compared to previous themes.
Time Force! Time Force! Power Rangers! Time for Power Rangers! Time Force! Time for Power Rangers! Time Force! Time for Power Rangers! Time Force!
And using different singers than the previous two themes who really try their hardest to make themselves heard more. Granted, the fact that the singers sound like the Kaiser Chiefs singing with a head cold does make me snicker a bit when I hear the theme song.
Timeless wonders, fire and thunder, all to save the world. I put it to riot. I put it to riot.
But it's still a really good song, and it laid the good foundation for the following series theme, which we'll get into in due time. But this song really is a timeless wonder. Some things never change, do they? Number 9. Turbo. After mentioning him for so long, we finally get into an actual Ron Wasserman song. Turbo is one of the most hated series of the entire early years of Power Rangers, and was so poorly received it nearly killed the entire show. But thankfully, one thing that did stay awesome was the music, and the theme song is no exception. Turbo is a Ron Wasserman piece, so of course it's going to be awesome, but out of all of his songs for the show, I find this one to be the least enjoyable.
Go! Power Rangers Turbo, go! Power Rangers Turbo, go! Power Rangers Turbo!
Not only is it the shortest, but it's very repetitive, and granted almost all Power Rangers songs are very repetitive, but I just feel like he could have done a little bit more with this one, which to be fair is basically the problem I have with the series in a nutshell. Still, it is a very addicting song, adding in great amounts of emphasis for the lyrics and verses leading into the chorus.
Mighty engines roar, turbocharge for more, drive for on the floor.
Giving it a very, no pun intended, full-throttled sounding song that really gets you pumped for the show. And this was the last song Ron Wasserman produced that used chords from the original Go-Go Power Rangers song, which feels fitting since both his time with the show and this era of the show overall was coming to an end. Though sadly, after the theme song you might as well just turn it off because it's a rough ride from then on. And yes, that pun was intended.
I've got one. Turbo is a series that just breaks down so quickly.
Nice one. Number 8. Dino Charge. Dino Charge is generally considered the best of the series that were made when Saban had repurchased the rights back from Disney, and while it's not a phenomenal series, it is very entertaining and a considerable improvement over the two series that came before it, and fittingly the theme song is very good.
We must fight to survive, try to break the chains that divide.
Plus the heavy drums and chanting leading into the first verse really builds up hype and gives it a bit of a jungle style feel. See Jungle Fury? That's how you do it. And when the main body of the song kicks in, it almost feels like the show is demanding that you get up and fight. Not that I would, I don't want to get arrested again. Also, I do love the little nod of Chase having a Kiwi on his skateboard. That's actually pretty cute. This was a song that was really needed after the disappointment that was the previous season, Megaforce, and it really helped bring back old fans that were starting to have their doubts about the franchise, and it really feels like an epic dinosaur-style song that makes you go, hell yeah, Power Rangers! Which I will admit, the next one doesn't quite have that same effect, but it has its own reasoning for being higher in my mind. Number 7. Lightspeed Rescue. Lightspeed Rescue was the very first Power Rangers series that I ever saw as a kid, and it has a very warm place in my heart, as does the theme song.
Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue! Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue! Lightspeed! Go!
Much like the series itself, a lot of people complain about the theme song seeming a little too simple, but I still feel it has its good points, and I personally think it fits perfectly with the series and sounds great, even if it is a bit generic, but that's because the series it was attached to was also a bit generic, but in a good way.
The signal is calling, our planet is falling, the danger will test you, better make it a Lightspeed Rescue!
By this point in the franchise, most of the old dedicated viewers had left the show, so this series was basically an attempt to bring in a whole new generation of Power Rangers fans, and I feel that the theme song reflects that. It's not the most energetic or memorable, but it does the job. I consider Lightspeed Rescue the perfect entry point for people wanting to get into Power Rangers who want to avoid the cheapness and rough edges of the Mighty Morphin days, but can't get into the later series of that era because of the continuing story. And the theme song is also a perfect first theme song to listen to before getting into the more hyped and fast-paced ones. So this song is a little average, yes, but that's kind of what it needed to be, and I think we should respect it for that. But I still think this song is really good. But the next ones on the list are by far some of the best the franchise has to offer. Number 6. In Space. In Space is considered by many to be one of, if not the best Power Rangers series of all time, making the series into a sci-fi space adventure for the first time, and finally ending the ongoing story that was started with the very first series in a glorious fashion. And the theme song appropriately has a great sense of finality and intergalactic exploration to it. I do feel that this one suffers a little bit from the same problem Turbo's theme had. It's a little too short and a little repetitive, but it does have a more epic feel to it and has a great sense of finality to it, like I said. Which does make it better and fitting for what was going to be the last series. Get used to hearing that statement because it seems like over half the series in the Power Rangers portfolio were intended to be the last one. Even Jason Voorhees would laugh at this series' inability to end itself.
Hey, it's not that weird. How many times have you disappeared from YouTube and made a comeback?
Oh, that's true. Plus, the rocket countdown at the beginning, as corny as it might seem, is really awesome. And it does really hammer in the whole in space theme really well.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Rangers in space!
But while this song is a great one, it, and subsequently all the themes on this list, haven't come even close to the iconography of the next one. Number 5. Go-Go Power Rangers and its various remixes. And here's the next one that everyone was waiting for, and I'm sure many people are going to be unhappy on how low on the list this is, but despite how much I've been raging that this has been used too much throughout the franchise, I can't deny it is a bloody awesome song. I really don't think that we need to go into why Go-Go Power Rangers is such a good song, because I think everybody at this point has heard it. And while it is awesome, and it has stood the test of time, which you can tell by how many times they reuse it, I do feel that some of the other themes have managed to excel above this one. But it doesn't take away from how great this song is, and it's the only Power Rangers theme that was originally made as a full-length song.
They've got a power and a force that you've never seen before. No one can ever take them down. The power lies on their side.
And if you can find that version, I seriously recommend you check it out. It's even cooler. And if they incorporated more into the actual theme, this probably would be at the top. But as is, I do feel it's a bit too simple for the version that they used on actual TV, but it is still really good. Oh, and for the record, I'm including the remix versions with this one, so the versions they used for Samurai, Alien Rangers, and Megaforce are also here, since they're basically all the same song, and they all sound great. So, sorry if you wanted to hear my opinion on those series, but they're probably best skipped over anyway.
You're walking on the razor's edge today, aren't you?
Hey, I've made a ton of enemies through my YouTube career already. Why stop now? Number 4. Dino Thunder. Dino Thunder was a great series, and I really felt that they took the themes and formula of the original Mighty Morphin series and updated it really effectively, which is made all the better when Jason David Frank returned as Tommy as a supporting role and later one of the members of the actual team. It was also the first series to introduce Kelson Henderson, who has gone on to be the most reoccurring cast member in all of Power Rangers history, having appeared or providing voice work in almost every series from this point on. I do hope he does that because he actually enjoys being on the show and not because he can't find any other work.
Hey, you keep doing this because you can't find other work and you seem happy enough.
Things are not always as they seem, Huck. And the theme song was also really good, and itself feels like a modern version of what Go-Go Power Rangers would be, but sounding like its own song.
With the force of ages, centuries gone by, protectors of the right.
See every 2010's Power Rangers series? That's how you do it. The way it starts off a little slow with just drums and minimal guitars at first, it really helps build a sense of grandeur and anticipation. And the tempo builds brilliantly, and once it hits its climax, you're totally pumped.
Dino Rangers roar, Power Rangers score.
I also love how this theme song and the opening were edited. I mean, in general, the openings of any Power Rangers series are edited spectacularly, but the way this one perfectly keeps time with the beats of the music, plus the great part of having Tommy posing as the lyrics go, "Power Rangers Dino Thunder," is actually really cool. But of course, it's not the best theme song in a series that involves Tommy. No, that honour goes to number 3. Zeo. Zeo was the first series of the classic run to fully change up the costumes, setting, and even the name of the show, since Mighty Morphin ran for 3 seasons, and naturally having to mix in the old suit footage with fight scenes from New Sentai was a massive challenge at the time. So the producers eventually said, sod it, and decided that the 4th season would be a fresh start, costume and identity wise, and I think it worked out really well, and one of the things that helped that change was the theme song. To me, this is Go-Go Power Rangers if it was brought to its fullest potential. More lyrics, more orchestration, having a chorus that sings both baritone and soprano, and even has a really cool intro with just a cappella to give it a really mysterious and chilling vibe just before it goes into the main body of the song. It's really cool. I know I've ragged on Go-Go Power Rangers for being overused in the franchise and feeling a bit too simple sometimes, but I really do love the song. But Zeo feels like what Go-Go Power Rangers should have been from the start, and it's great, and it feels like it would have been the perfect song that could have ended the franchise, but it's still a great song on its own. But Ron Wasserman still had more to give us over 10 years later with number 2. SPD. SPD is also a fan favourite series, kind of feeling like a mix of Power Rangers meets Babylon 5, but with a bit of Men in Black in there too, but with having a talking dog as a mentor. It's a weird combination, but it really worked.
Well, you host a show with a fox, so you're one to talk.
Hey, you're cute and funny, why not have you along for the ride as well? But the best part of the show was by far the theme song. As I said back at the beginning of this list, if you're still here after all this time I've taken from you with this video, Ron Wasserman was brought back to do the theme song for the series, and he showed that he had not mellowed with age, with the best theme song he's done in my opinion.
Power Rangers, SPD, Power Rangers to the rescue. Power Rangers, SPD, Power Rangers to the rescue.
It really does give off the feel of a sci-fi police show, and does have a great sense of energy and epicness that Ron always brought to his themes, and while he's never shied away from using reverb effects in his songs, this one sounds a bit different from his past times, like there's a tiny little bit of digital distortion in there, but it really works well, and it fits with the theme.
No matter where you are, if it's near or far, you can always call out Space Patrol.
I will admit when I first heard it, I was a little bit put off by the hard rock guitar that opens it, especially with how it feels like it's really out of place with the rest of the theme. But it has grown on me, and the lead into the main part of the song is surprisingly smooth. Plus the guitar riff near the end is really awesome. But even with all that, I still don't think it's the best theme of them all, and I know that if there are any few people who are still here are probably going to click away when seeing what the last entry is going to be. But it's my list, so I'm saying what I think is the best of all of them, and that is number 1. Wild Force. Wild Force often ranks pretty low in most Power Rangers fans' opinions, and while it's nowhere near as hated as Overdrive or Megaforce, it is considered one of the worst series, mostly due to how preachy some of the episodes are on the environment, often making fans refer to this series as Power Rangers Captain Planet, and its negative reputation isn't helped by how its star, Rick Medina Jr., was arrested and jailed in 2017 on murder charges. I certainly do understand a lot of the hatred towards this series and how preachy it can be, but to be honest, that only takes up about 15% of the show at most, and the rest of the show is actually pretty good. The action is great, the visuals are captivating, and of course, it has the best theme song in Power Rangers history. I think it really comes down to the mix of, like Zeo, a cappella parts, the fact that the chorus singing is genuinely really good, the digitized voice parts, and the animal sound effects, and it has the most amount of energy and excitement in a Power Rangers theme to date. SPD did come incredibly close to claiming the top position in my mind, but the sheer sense of triumph and majesty that the Wild Force theme had put it just a tiny bit ahead for me. It's also worth noting that Wild Force was once again intended to be a final series, and as a swan song, well, song, I think it would have been absolutely perfect. I genuinely get chills listening to this song, not just for the nostalgia, but because it honestly is that good of a song. And I always loved the animal-themed Power Rangers series anyway.
And yet there's still no Fox Power Rangers in there.
Oh, come on, Huck, that's never going to happen.
Oh, a monster's attacking. It's morphin' time.
Wait, you're a Power Ranger?
Hey-ya! Ha! Ooh! Ah! Oof! Ah! Here, take that!
Huh. I had no idea. But I guess I should have guessed. He does wear orange all the time. But for now, I've had enough of this. I'm going on the other side to have a bath. Bye!